John, you found another great article here. This one talks about the new etiquette for tipping. And I'll tell you this, when I was early on in college. So I was not just broke, but super broke. I came from being broke. I went super broke when I went to college. And we were at Applebee's. And my friend was like, hey, aren't you going to leave a tip? And I said, man, I barely got enough. I'm digging in change to get the money to pay for my bill. This is what I got, and this is what I'm going to give them. They said 59, I'm giving them 59. And I got ready to leave, and my guy was like, hey, you should never do that because they use this tip. This tip is a part of their actual wage. And I was like, here's a tip. I'm like, can you let me borrow $1? Like, you know, and I didn't understand. I didn't understand tipping. I didn't understand what it was about, what it was for. I didn't understand how it worked. And so you brought in this article and it was talking about, hey, here's the new etiquette for tipping. Here's where we're going. I say, oh boy, I better read this real thoroughly because I was late to the party in the first place.
Here's what I want to lean into as we get into this discussion. Just because one thing is wrong don't mean that another thing is right.
Right.
I have often seen people say online that if you can't afford to tip, then you should never go out to eat. And I'm like, man, that is such a privileged take.
It is.
You know, for that parent who wants to treat their kid and all they have, like they've been saving up just that amount of money to go out, man, to tell them they should never take their kid to any place that you're going to see, like some of the places that are asking for a tip now is just is ridiculous. And so, man, it is nice to be able to tip. It is nice to be able to tip, and it's a privilege to be able to tip, and it's nice to be able to show appreciation in that way. And as we're going to discuss, I believe there's other ways to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So in this article, it sets up talking about all the different places that are asking for tips now. Aldi was asking me if I wanted to round up the other day. We are in that space now. And so kind of this first paragraph, it says how to deal with unexpected tip requests. And you can find this article in the comment section or in the notes for the article. It says if a business you don't expect to ask for a tip is suddenly asking you for a tip, what should you do? It says it's up to you to decide whether or not to tip and how much. But Shubharansa Singh, a marketing professor at Johns Hopkins University, forgive me, Dr. Singh, likes to leave a 10% tip. If an establishment is asking for a tip, it's often an indication that the workers there are not getting paid a minimum wage. So it's good to err on the side of leaving something. Boy, I got some smoke for this one. Listen.
No, son. Let me tell you something.
I got a jump line on this. Pay a living wage to the people who work for you. When we don't, we're asking people in poverty to lift the weight for other people in poverty.
But, Brail, they're going to have to charge more for the food. Have you been out to eat lately?
They're already charging more for the food. And we still have to tip. I'm tired of that argument, man.
But, hey, I'm just going to... So I'm going to tell you, I disagree with Dr. Singh and Professor Singh or whatever it is.
Yes.
Because, man, look, if I'm not supposed to tip, you're not getting 10%. Jesus Christ only asked for 10%. You're not getting 10%. If I'm driving through a drive-through, you can go ahead and put 0. No, I'm not donating to this other cause. I give to a whole bunch of causes. At the grocery store, I'm not rounding up and putting more. No, I'm not. Because even now, I get so mad at the grocery store where I got to check out all my own groceries. It used to be back where we got help to the car. And I'm going to tell you, as an African-American male, I have a lot of times where clerks will look at me, they'll be bagging everybody else's groceries, look at me and look the other way. So I'm bagging my own groceries. I'm checking out a lot of own time. If I'm in a drive-through, you are not getting a tip. If I order to go, you are not getting a tip. No, like even I believe in tipping, and I tip generously when I am being served. Mm-hmm. But man, we cannot go to this place now where it's just it's on ridiculous stuff. And I'm like, no, how did we get here where my deal is this, right? And I kind of get annoyed, like, it's even outside of this, right? If I pay my lawn guy to do my loan, right? I don't tell them how much to charge me. A lot of times I'm on my own loan. Sometimes I'm too busy, I pay somebody. But they tell me their charge.
And that's what I give them.
That's what I give them. It is disingenuous to say, I'm going to charge you this amount, but I really want you to give me this amount. And I'm going to put social pressure on you to give you this other amount. Man, that's extortion.
Yeah. Man, and here's the thing. I don't know if y'all know there's a big debate about affirmative action just within the last 2 years. And one of the major arguments that came up was affirmative action isn't actually helping African American students to grow and succeed. This is like affirmative action. There's something broken in the system. Man, the people who work at my establishment, they don't get paid a living wage. So I really need you to come through with this tip. No, why don't we fix the actual issue? And I'll say this, I try to be generous wherever I can. Sometimes I'll round up. As a state of principle, I'm not going to always round up. But there are some times where I do because I understand the situation that we're in. And so I want to help where I can. And we need to put the responsibility where it lies. If a system is broken, we need to work on fixing the system instead of using Band-Aid solutions that leave us really in the
But my deal is like, man, if we go, and we've talked about this here on the podcast before of why tipping was invented.
Yep.
And how like it led to some inequality. It was created to force inequality. And like, so we had to examine that. I don't think anybody should be working for $2.15 an hour, right? It's just a bad practice, right? That's just a bad practice. And to build an industry on that, to say we wouldn't be able to survive if we actually pay living wage. You know what that sounds like to me?
Slavery.
We could never harvest this cotton if we had to pay our laborers.
Like slavery.
And that was the excuse used to continue to practice. I'm like, we've been down this road before. Why are we going down this road again?
And in that same metaphor, this does not speak to the dignity, value, and worth of the workers in that industry. This speaks to the value and dignity and worth that we as a society are placing on those workers. And that is what we need to address.
So I graduated college. 9/11 happened my senior year of undergrad, right? And I went to work in the chemical industry. Now, if you know anyone who's ever worked in that industry, right? So one of the things we made there was actually a chemical that is used in rocket fuel. So if you have a bad day, a whole bunch of people can have a really bad day really quickly.
Yeah.
And at the gate, before they did some change, like after 9/11, some different stuff started happening. But at the gate of the plants at first, it used to just be this little plastic arm that let down in a contract security guard that would work the gate. And I looked at it and I'm like, all these dangerous chemicals behind this gate. And the person that you're paying to be security is making $12, $14 an hour. At most.
Yeah.
In this little plastic gate. I said, man, they not paying them people enough to jump in front of no car.
We all gonna die.
No, I'm like, we all dead. I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I'm like, hey fam, no. In the same, like when you're looking at the people that handle like in your food in the food industry, right? If you look at different things, I still tip my barber. I do. Because that's a service. I tip my barber. Right? I try to be generous. Like and here's the deal. My barber has never asked for a tip or even act like they expect. Because most of the time, here's the deal. The way things are set up now with apps, I have paid for my haircut before I ever get there.
Yeah.
Because when I arrange my appointment, I've paid before I get there, right? I was always taught you double the tax, right? That's kind of the base. You double the tax. I grew up in Texas. We had a 8.25 sales tax. You double. You're at like 16%, so you're a little bit over the 15% customary. Boom, you're good. But now, man, you go to places and they're starting out at 20, 25%. You're starting out at some outrageous percentages, and I'm like, I can't add another third to my bill.
Right. And that brings us to our next piece. It says, beware screen pressure. Some businesses load their payment systems with a default minimum tip option, of more than 20%. If you don't want to give that much, don't worry about holding up the line to take an extra moment to select that custom tip option.
See, here's where you mess up messing with Diane's son.
That's him, by the way.
I have a chemical engineering degree. I have a master's degree. But if you pull stuff like this, I'm not going to take time to do complex math. So what I'm going to do is you're going to get less than what you would have gotten if I had to go to that other tip option. Out of spite toward that organization that has pulled it. And so you can go to your bosses and tell them
Drake levels of petty.
that they have done this to you. Because now it's about to be far less than what I would have given you because you got greedy on this thing.
So you mean you're not asking the questions they tell us to ask in the article? What is the minimum and sub-minimum wage in your state?
Hey, fam.
Do you keep your whole tip? And how can I make sure you're getting my tip? Now, as we flip through this, if you are someone who tips on a regular and you want to make sure that people are getting your tip, these are great questions to ask. These are great questions to ask if you know that you're trying to help out the person who is there, regardless of how we feel about the practice.
I don't work for 60 minutes. I'm not doing no full interview at the end of my meal.
Or the grocery store.
I'm
still at Aldi in my head. I'm in Aldi right now.
So me and my wife had this because my wife worked as a waitress and everything, and even she has gotten to the point where she's like, I worked in that industry and now things are getting ridiculous, right? And so the amount of things that people are asking for tips for has gone so much overboard.
Yeah.
And when you order to go, people are putting surcharges on your to go orders now.
Yep.
And I'm like, fam, hold up. And here's why this don't make sense. I got enough good sense to tell you why it doesn't make sense for you to pay me for to go containers. Because if I eat in-house, you now have to pay a dishwasher. You didn't add a surcharge to my meal to pay for the dishwasher. So now you're gonna pay. Now you didn't add a surcharge for my meal to pay for the air conditioner that you had to put in, the air conditioner or heat that you had to put in while I ate in this establishment, or the electricity for the TVs. Or by me not eating in, I'm reducing all those costs. So there's no way you should be adding a surcharge for to-go dishes, like to-go containers. Because here's the deal, if I sit down in your restaurant and I don't finish my food and I ask for a to-go container, you're not gonna put a surcharge on there. But you put one on there when I just ordered. And I'm like, what I do, here's my belief. I'm not gonna post negatively about your business online. Just guess what?
I won't be back.
Won't be back. I will vote with my feet in my wallet. My deal is, Brail knows I'm like this. You don't see me leaving a bunch of smoke or whatever online. And there's been plenty of reasons for me to do that with people and organizations or whatever else. And I tell my team, we're not going to move like that. We're just not going to move like that. And if I see something like that, I ask them to take it down. But I will say, oh, we're done.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't have to feel like Pam Oliver and his Joker, to pay my bill at the end of the meal. Now, I do engage with I always try to ask my waiter or waitress for their name so I can refer to them by name. And when I'm in an establishment, I do try to tip and be generous. A lot of times I am over that minimal thing, unless I just get really bad service. But I just feel like this is too much weight being put on the other side. This is too much weight.
Yeah. So the article also goes in talking about why tipping culture has changed. And I have a few issues with this. It says that the expectations have grown over the last few years, with a 2023 Pew Research survey saying that nearly 12,000 adults in the U.S., about 72%, say that they are being asked to tip service workers more frequently than in the past. And only about a third say it's extremely or very easy to know when or how much to tip. One of the reasons is, it says, the pandemic. We started tipping people who we didn't used to tip and tipping more than usual to support essential workers in time of crisis, which I call BS because we are out of that space. And at the same time, the technology around how we pay has changed. So Square, the company behind many electronic payment screens, gets a cut of each transaction. So creating software that encourages tipping and encourages bigger tips means more money for companies like Square. Did it say more money for the person who's checking out your baggage?
Nope.
Did it say more money for the housekeeper in your hotel?
Nope.
It said more money for companies like Square. Tipping is also a way to pay workers more without actually raising their wages. I figured we'd get to that part.
But here's the deal. Can we stop right here for a second? Here's the problem. And this happens in so many areas of life where we turn something that's descriptive into something that's prescriptive. And what happened in the pandemic was some people fell for the people in the service industry, which a lot of us did. And so somebody came out and said, you know what, to help the people in the service industry, I'm going to tip more.
Yeah.
And so what some people
I think is a
took that, I think was a great thing. I took part. But then some people took that to mean, oh, now this is what you should do always and all the time.
Right.
And it's like, no, because during the pandemic, we did tip people who didn't normally get tipped because we were trying to help them through that phase of life that we were all, we're gathered here today.
Right.
Talk about this thing called life, right? We were all trying to get through life in that period of time. And so we did some things in that time, but that shouldn't mean that they're prescriptive for all time, always, everywhere. And I think that is what gets you in problems, whether it's in the church or when it comes to eating in a restaurant or wherever else, is when you turn something that's descriptive into something that's prescriptive, and then you don't know all the kind of stuff on the back end that is going toward that. And so if I've had exceptional service like over several days in a hotel, man, I'll leave some money for the housekeeping service. But here's the deal. A lot of hotels still haven't returned to even taking care of your room each day while you're in a hotel. Because in the pandemic, right, they said we were short of staff because of the pandemic. So we can't change your sheets and everything else. The service that you used to get in a hotel, you don't get a lot of times anymore, where it's like your room is ready when you get there, and then it's like that until you leave. And so that it doesn't even match a lot of times because you're not even getting served while you're there.
Right.
And so now you're tipping somebody who didn't serve you.
Who didn't serve you. And like the last part of the article talks about there being a minimum wage and a sub-minimum wage. And to me, that's such an issue, man. If I say the minimum wage is how much you need to be able to live and survive and thrive, which it isn't right now in our country, why would I then say, this is the minimum wage you really need to live by, which it's not, but here's how much I can get away with paying.
Because we sometimes place value on people's lives and stuff that are just ridiculous.
Yep.
And man, that's something that we have to wrestle with. And it's gonna cost something. I'm gonna tell you something. Righting any wrong always costs you something. There was a time when the majority of people in our country can say, I don't know how tipping got started. I don't know how we got started working for these wages. There's enough information out there now where you can choose ignorance. Mm-hmm. You can choose ignorance. And so we know where it came from. And because we know where it came from, there's time that we get on the path of making it right. Is that going to, man, look, our number one export was cotton to the world, right? Because we had the free labor. We had some of those things. And it changed the industry when we had to start making some things right. And it's going to be the same in the food industry. You know what? We should be willing to go through that together. Man, I don't want any of my friends who own restaurants or food companies or anything like that nature to lose their businesses. And we got to operate on different models. Also, I'm going to tell you, my kids had a soccer game this past weekend, and I went to work out. It was an earlier game than normal. So on Saturday mornings, I go work out, but the gym doesn't open till 7 on Saturday mornings. So by the time I work out, get home, shower, I had to leave. The rest of the family had ate breakfast. I didn't. We're walking by the concession stand when we got to the game. I looked over to say, maybe I should get a hot dog because I'm going to be out here for a while with this thing. I looked and saw that the hot dog was $3. Nope. But then the place we went to after the game for lunch, a hot dog there was $3.50. And I was like, when did we get to a place where I know at the concession stand I was gonna get
you're gonna be overcharged because of the
I'm gonna get
convenience.
they're not buying Hebrew Nationals.
Even high quality.
They're not buying the
Right.
Nathans at the stadium, right? They're not doing this at this little concession stand. And I'm like, man, how do we get to a place with this? And this is almost like we're in a place where it's going to be hard to operate. We got to really re-examine some stuff. That's why I'm still on the deal with. I don't understand how we got tax on food here in Kansas, and it is partial. Like even as partial tax done sit right with me. Mm-hmm. We have to really look at some things and how we're operating because we're just in a bad spot.
And here's the thing: it's like you said, we are in this together. When I first realized tipping, I'm definitely, as a kid, I was one of those, I stand on principles. I will ride the edge of what's okay. And when I found out, oh, that's what's tipping, I ain't never tipping again. And I had to go through, and then I had to get some maturity in my life and grow a little, and had a lot of friends who worked in the food service industry. And as I thought about it, I was like, no, I don't think the way that my friends are being treated is right. And when I go out to eat, I'm going to make sure I tip. When I can.
I'm not going to punish the people in the industry for
the industry being broken.
The industry being broken. And I'm also not going to say this. I'm not going to punish all my friends that are entrepreneurs in the food industry by saying I'm not going to go out to eat, I'm not going to do these things, because I'm going to try to give you business every time I can.
Yeah. There has to be a balance to that.
Yes.
Like, because we do have to work through this together. And during this period of time, like, we got to make a balance. And so how much should you tip? When should you tip? Really, that is up to you. That is really up to you. But we also need to be having the larger conversations of, okay, we're here now, but is this where we want to be? And how do we get to where we want to be?
And my deal is this. You have to understand, and there's so many ways to show appreciation. There's so many ways to get involved. So I talk about this all the time. It's like one of the popular things around Christmas time is the Salvation Army kettle. Mm-hmm. And, man, they do good work. They help a lot of people. I don't give money to the Salvation Army kettle because there's other Christmas things that I give toward. And I'm totally secure in that and say, hey, based on what I give here, and I want to direct the extra funds I have here, so I don't feel any guilt. The thing that we got to get around is being compelled by guilt, because that's not the right way to. They don't bring about true, lasting change. Yeah. That's compulsory, right? And that's pity. People don't want our pity, right? They want us to empathize, not for us to pity them. And so when we walk beside people, we have to say, man, how can we change this? Like, I give to Christmas initiatives, but I'm also working year-round to see how to walk beside people as they rise out of poverty so they don't need Christmas programs to help them with gifts around Christmas. Yeah. It's a both and. It's not an either or. We do the relief and we do the development. You need both. Yep. And so I think that's what we need here. I think tipping should be seen as relief for a sub-minimum wage. And we need some development now to start happening because we've had enough years of relief, and relief alone doesn't move the ball.
Right.
And so that's where I would land is I see tipping as relief work, and now it's time for us to start doing the hard work of development in these service areas to help people get to a wage, because not the entire world is not on the same system as we are.
Mm-hmm. And that's gonna make a cost. It's gonna be a cost for workers. It's gonna be a cost for entrepreneurs. It's gonna be a cost for us who are in that space.
One of the costs that you're gonna have to get used to if you travel to Europe, man, they give you that one cube of ice in your drink and you don't get any refills. Bro, if you travel, like, you got to get used to that. If you travel in Europe and Asia.
Yeah, I used to live out there.
Boy, you getting that one drink with that one cube of ice, and that's it. That whole American system of refills and
Yeah, they're not rocking like that. There's
it
differences.
ain't rocking like that.
There's a balance everywhere.
We'll
man.
have to get used to that for sure.
Well, hey, thank y'all for joining us today in the intersection. Man, what did you guys think of this conversation? What do you guys think about tipping in our system here in America? Talk about it in the comment sections. Like, comment, subscribe, and share with a friend. That helps us out because we ain't even getting the sub minimum wage for the show. So help us out, man, by sharing this because we just want to spread these conversations and be able to talk, man. We'll see you guys next week here in the intersection.